All right, time now for the exchange and my conversation with Bram Frouws. He's the director of the Mixed Migration Center, which actually put out its own report last month alleging the brutal killing of Ethiopian migrants by Saudi security forces as well. Bram, thank you so much for being with us. I mean, this report is deeply distressing. I mean, it's unthinkable what may have happened here, just in terms of the systematic murder of hundreds of migrants, many of them talking about severed limbs, people being killed with explosive devices, as well as being shot at close range as well. Just walk us through what your report alleges exactly and how you work to sort of piece together the information just in terms of interviews.
Sure, thanks for having me. I think in terms of the findings, our report is very similar to the findings we're hearing and reading about from Human Rights Watch today. We initially researched the whole route, so running from Ethiopia, across the Gulf of Aden or Red Sea into Yemen and onwards to Saudi Arabia. There was a bigger piece of research we put out some months ago, actually. But then more information came our way, information that's being collected by community informants operating in northern Yemen. And more information came our way on what's happening precisely at the border. Some of our interviews already alluded to it. So we decided to do additional research. We interviewed more returnees, witnesses, survivors who were returned to Ethiopia, but had crossed the border to Saudi Arabia before. And they spoke of their first-hand experiences, and everybody had witnessed people around them dying. Everybody had experienced these shootings at the border. They've all seen mass graves, very shallow graves where Ethiopians are buried. So really, as you said, I mean, we've been researching migration for more than 15 years, including this particular route. But this is by far the most distressing piece of research I ever worked on.
One of the things that stood out just in terms of your conversation with our producers is that prior to 2022, and it's worth noting that Saudi Arabia has issued blanket denials, by the way, but based on your research, prior to last year, these sort of killings were random, ad hoc, somewhat infrequent. After 2022, what you noted, just in terms of your research, was that these killings became much more systematic, much more targeted. Just walk us through, I mean, and it might be difficult to sort of know the answer to this, but what exactly changed last year from the Saudi perspective?
I mean, we have to be careful, of course, because we might be missing some of the information that we have from 2022 and 2023. So maybe to some extent this was already happening before. But the UN put also out a communication back in October 2022. And basically what was more common, people were killed before at this border, but it was more sporadic and occasional. And what was more common is that people might be caught in the crossfire between the parties to the conflict. So as you say, what we are seeing from the evidence that we have is that this became much more widespread, much more systemic from 2022 onwards. I mean, why this is happening, that's hard to say. Of course, this is a highly securitized border. So there might be still concerns that rebels might be crossing the border. But then again, I think it's quite clear that this is deliberate, this is targeted towards migrants. But it's really hard to say why exactly this is happening. And I think there's only one way to find out, and that would be asking the Saudis. But that question has been asked to the Saudis. And so far, as you said earlier, the allegations are rejected.
Right, they have issued denials. I mean, walk us through what accountability looks like. I mean, obviously, you've published this report, as has Human Rights Watch. They've published their report. So the world's attention is on this now. Do you see any avenue for there actually to be real accountability here?
I think there are several avenues. As you say, the evidence is out now. I think right now with the UN communication, with our report from early July and with Human Rights Watch, there's a mounting evidence base. So this is an issue that can no longer be ignored. It's unprecedented. I mean, sadly, we see refugees and migrants dying all over the world along different migration routes. You can argue this is sometimes the result of government policy, but what we're seeing here is targeted and systemic killing. So this can no longer be ignored. I think what needs to happen is that the international community put all political and diplomatic pressure on Saudi Arabia in their direct bilateral relations with Saudi Arabia. It's good that it's out in the open. This is a country that is concerned about its public image. We see that by the organization of sports events and bringing in soccer stars. So I think this public naming and shaming hopefully will lead to a change. Of course, ultimately, perpetrators need to be held accountable. But there, I think we have to be realistic, and I think it's quite unlikely that that will ever happen. But yeah, again, we really hope that with all this information out there from various sources, that the pressure will be mounting, and this will lead to a change.
Yeah, let's hope so. Bram Frouws, live for us there. Thank you so much, Director of the Mixed Migration Centre. We appreciate you coming on the show.